Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pivotal Change. This is a show that is all about leadership and business and that entrepreneurial spirit where you are trying to find those one or two moments or tactics or educational points to make the pivotal change in your life and in your business to launch you to that next level of success that you've been envisioning all this time. Got a really fun episode tonight. I have a friend of mine from Blueprint Ventures. His name is Steve Galley, and he is the founder of two separate tech companies of which he has built, he has scaled, and he has exited those companies, and he's working on more and more. He is a fantastic leader, developer, and visionary. And I want to welcome you on today. Steve, thank you for coming on the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, very good. Well, I like to always jump right in because we are always running to against the clock. And I want to talk about exactly what I just introduced you. You have built and scaled and exited these companies and done a wonderful job transitioning industries. And you came in here and you really had an impact on those industries to where not only did it make for a good sale point, but it made for a good change in what people needed to do to be successful. So walk me through the mind of an entrepreneur. What does it take to start on an endeavor like what you did, to see the vision, to develop and really get the ball rolling so that you can build, scale, and exit something?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the mind of an entrepreneur, that mindset, first it could be a lonely journey, right? You're going into an industry, you're trying to change, you're trying to disrupt, and sometimes you're kind of left, by yourself, and you need some team around you to be able to support you. The biggest key is to just be able to fight through the downtime. You fight hard through the downtimes, and you capitalize on when everything could go right, you're capitalizing it on the upside. So I think it's just hard work and not taking no for an answer and continuing to believe in what your true passion is.
Ooh, I really like believing in what your true passion is. And we've talked a little bit in the past and some of the stuff we're working on together. And I know that you and I are very like-minded in that visionary mindset. Tell me about the entrepreneur who really wants to, like you just said, disrupt an industry. I find that when I'm trying to make some of those big changes, I just have this feeling or the sensation, and sometimes maybe I can put my finger on it of something's not right or something needs to change and can be better. What do people need to do to start identifying that and then taking actions on that idea or that vision?
Yeah, they know their industry, right? You know your industry, you know the pain points. I feel like the best businesses evolve from people who truly feel and identify the problem that's happening inside their industry that could then easily be relayed and transferred over to everybody else in their industry for the entire industry to benefit from. So if you're identifying a pain point, and that's also where a lot of the intellectual property, not from a legal perspective, but really from that moat that you build around your company for protecting defensibility. If you're really solving those intricate pain points inside your industry, that's where the best vision and the best really products are developed from.
Okay, so moving along with that idea, if you're talking about the creation and develop, you're ultimately solving a problem, maybe not just for yourself, but for others in the industry. So you have identified that this is a pain point or an area of concern and issue for a lot of people, and I'm going to jump into that area and bridge the gap. Essentially, is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, that's exactly it. If you're a true entrepreneur and you're really trying to go out and make change, disrupt, however you want to position it inside your industry, not everybody in the industry has that mindset. Very few of us are truly entrepreneurs where we're going to go out there, take the risks, put in that extra time and effort and almost run a second job on top of our normal job. So, um, really, when you take a look at the mindset, there's not many people in your industry that will typically step in to try and solve this problem. Probably the top 1 to 2% actually have the ability to step in and actively do it. So I think that depending on your industry, you have somewhat of an obligation and an opportunity to tackle something that nobody else will really tackle.
I really like the word obligation that you use. That's one that I use a lot when talking about leadership and servant leadership, where you're trying to lift other people up or lift companies or lift clients up to better serve them. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short is sometimes they're just chasing the buck or they're just chasing the 40-hour work week. And you mentioned the entrepreneurial spirit. Most people are really just self-employed, not so much entrepreneurs is the way I might coin that. But you're looking at expressing to the audience here that they're going to have to put in extra time. There's going to be extra grind involved in those processes that are getting developed. How are you going to decide what processes to tackle first?
the largest pain point and then the scale, the benefit that if you're in an industry and you say, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and enhance my industry. I'm going to build some sort of product, technology, offering, whatever it is to enhance this industry. And I'm going to leverage it. I'm going to use it myself and I'm going to get a leg up and an advantage on the rest of my competitors. If you're going down that path, you know what your largest pain point is. It might be bringing on new customers. It might be selling in the sales cycle of new customers. It might be onboarding. It might be retention. Whatever that true differentiator and pain point is really where I would go in and I would build the foundation with solid processes across the board. I will say, my last two venture-backed businesses that I ran and built and sold, we had processes developed before we even brought on our first customer. So we actually went down and built out all the processes. Now, granted, they were tweaked and we learned, but every single person that came into our organization, if you're building something to scale, you don't have time to train on the fly. So at that point, we already had the playbook in place. They were trained right on it from employee number one coming in the door, processes across the board.
Yeah, I like having the product ready to deliver when it comes into bringing people on board like that. I think that's important. I think training on the fly, that on the job training type of category, I think there's a danger to that, and people overstep their bounds and how much on the job training you can really do instead of plugging and playing a selected personality type and employee into an existing effective process. And that way you're enhancing the efficiency of everybody. And so I really like that. So can you tell me a little bit more about when you plugged in those processes, how much, like, just give me a time balance. And I know you're shooting from the hip, maybe from your memory, but a time balance on when I brought someone on board, we could get them up and running in X number of hours, days, weeks. What would it take having a set of solid processes and workflow in place?
We typically go into like a full 2-week, 2.5-week training process with all of our employees in something that's like a tech-enabled service or a service-based business where, there's some sort of knowledge base that needs to be there. That's typically the candidate or the new team member that comes in typically already has a knowledge base. So now it's really learning new systems. We've always been highly disruptive in the way we went about things. If somebody in an industry normally goes from point A to point B, point A to point B to point C, we would probably go point A to point C. So we tend to like build a little bit more linear, and our processes are a little bit unique and might be different than the industry, which really requires them to adopt a new mindset coming into the industry. So 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to really train somebody up, and then could be 2 months for them to master it.
Okay, so I'm going to really emphasize what you're saying because I want to take just a moment to talk directly to the audience. So I've been very heavy in training in my entire life and career about getting adult humans to adapt to new sets of behavior and skills. And a lot of people find a friction point, a frustration point when, hey, I showed somebody how to do this and they're not getting it yet. And you're saying in a highly efficient system with the processes already built before bringing somebody on board, you can expect 2.5 weeks before they basically figure out how to plug in the system, and then 2+ months till they quote unquote know what they're doing. And so again, that's you, an expert that has done this multiple times at the highest level. If I'm running my smaller, medium-sized business and I don't have all of these clean processes and all of these ideal systems in place, we should be expecting a much longer retention time for them to retain the knowledge and be able to execute the tasks. Maybe that would deflate some of the frustration business owners are having to know what the highest level of achievement looks like compared to what they should expect when they don't have clean processes. Well, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think we as the business owners, we as the founders, the CEOs of our companies are responsible to make sure that every single person inside our organization gets it, wants it, and has the ability to execute their job. So if that's really our responsibility at the end of the day, everyone's going to learn differently. If your processes are that much different than typically that's going on in the industry, it's going to be a longer process. It's going to be a longer sales cycle because you're actually selling the concept to these new hires and these team members that this is the right way to do it. You might have been doing it a certain way your entire career, but here we do it differently, and you need to sell them as to why they're doing it differently, the benefit for them, and then properly make sure they understand it.
Oh, good. I like that so much. What you're saying about selling the vision, selling the new processes, and you and I both have the accounting background. And I could hire a credentialed employee from another firm, and I will constantly get the language, well, at my old place, we did it that way, or at so and so's firm, we did it that way. And we have to ingrain the adaptation of like, well, we have different systems, different processes that ultimately point at a newer, improved product.
Yep.
And I think that early sales pitch, like you're really saying, is again, you're giving a sales pitch to the person you're onboarding. I think that's a wonderful note for the audience to take and write down. So we're going to be talking about teams here in just a minute after the break, but I want to keep going on to this selection process of what type of metrics are you building when you're looking at recruiting a client, recruiting any type of capitalist, a partner? What are some of the things that you're saying, I have to match these umbrella based categories before I'll even approach a conversation with them?
Yeah. Every industry specific KPI is relevant. Growth metrics are relevant for every single company. Uh, Marketing, cost to acquire customers, cost to service those customers, all that stuff is really important. The culture aspect is huge, and making sure that strengths and weaknesses balance each other out. I think that's truly where organizations will really truly differentiate themselves from the rest of the competition in their space, because people tend to look and hire individuals who are like themselves, or they want to do business with individuals who are like themselves. And the reality is, you could like each other, but inside business, you do need to balance each other out. So truly understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, and then finding somebody who the lift isn't as heavy to them. It might be easier for them to get heavy into this detail and start ticking and tying numbers all day long. It might be easier to them than it is for you. And that makes for a great partnership and a great relationship for any sort of business.
I absolutely love what you just said there, and I think emphasizing the culture and the different fits and both the benefits and hazards of hiring people just like you is that you want some like-minded people, but you can't be hiring mini-me's because then you only have one function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a pin right here, Steve, and we're going to get ready to jump to commercial break. And after commercial break, everyone, we'll be returning to Pivotal Change to continue this conversation with Steve and learn more about teams, team development, and team selection. So stay tuned right after this.